On the first day of February 2015, Super Bowl 49 was played in Glendale, Arizona. It featured two of the best teams in the NFL that year, the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. Let me set the stage for you. Seattle had the ball on the 1-yard line, trailing by 4 points, with just 26 seconds left to go in the game. If they score a touchdown, they win Super Bowl 49 and give the Patriots another last-second Super Bowl loss, and probably destroying their long-lasting dynasty. At that moment, Patriots head coach Bill Belichick wasn't thinking about how much time was left on the clock, his own legacy, or even losing the game. His sole focus was staring at the Seattle bench. It didn't seem organized to him. It didn't seem in tune to him. So instead of calling a timeout, which everybody in the stands was screaming for, and I'm sure all the 120 million sitting at home on their couches eating potato chips wanted him to do, Belichick just took a couple steps back and called a defense that they'd never run before the entire season. Kind of an odd time to try something new, don't you think? Not for Belichick. What Seattle didn't know at that precise moment was back in April of that year, Belichick told his defensive coaches to come up with a goal line nickel defense, which means he wanted a lot of big guys to play the run, and he wanted a lot of little guys to play the pass. So they worked on it all spring. They worked on it all summer. They worked on it all fall. They never had to use that defense until 26 seconds left to go in the game. With the world watching, they needed it then. As soon as the Seattle sideline saw those big guys come running onto the field, their coaches said, we need 3 receivers. So they put their 3 receivers out there to counter what the Patriots were going to do. They thought they had the advantage. What happened next makes history. Undrafted rookie Malcolm Butler, I'll say that again, undrafted rookie free agent Malcolm Butler intercepts Russell Wilson's pass at the 1-yard line, preserving the victory for the Patriots. And unfortunately for Seattle head coach Pete Carroll, he's faced with having to answer questions probably for the rest of his life. Why did you throw the ball on the 1-yard line? You got Marshawn Lynch. Now, football people know what Pete Carroll did wasn't wrong. What Belichick did just happened to be right. And I'm one of those football people. I've spent 30 years in the National Football League. I have gone from being a gopher to a scout, to a general manager. I've worked with some of the greatest coaches the game has ever seen, from Bill Walsh to Bill Belichick and to Al Davis. I've watched these men work, and I've won 3 Super Bowls with these men. I got enough bling here to last a lifetime, right? Well, I've actually borrowed this from my grandson because I've given all the bling away, because the one thing I've learned in life, grandkids are the best bling of all, right? But I've watched Belichick work. I've stood right next to him. And people say to me all the time, what makes Belichick so good? Why is he able to dominate his profession? Now, keep in mind, becoming a head coach in the NFL, for some of you that don't know, there's only 32 teams. It's a harder job to get than the United States Senator. And the workforce in the NFL gets fired 1/3 of the time every single year. 1/3 gets sent out the door. Why is Belichick so special? What Belichick understands more than most in the NFL and all over the world is that his job as a leader is to establish, drive, and maintain the culture of the organization. Now, when we look all over the world today, and there's a lot of places to look in the United States and wherever, leaders spend more time focused on their bottom line, on strategy and tactics, and therefore, their leadership is killing culture. Every day, a leader's behavior impacts the organization to the smallest degree. If he's not mindful of their behavior, the organization can slip away. Let's go back to 1955, the S&P top 500 firms in the world. Only 60 remain today. Just 60. 440 have vanished into the air. Now, you can all say, oh, Lombardi, you're crazy. You know, we live in the age of technology and innovation. Of course, they've all gone disappear because of that. I say no. I say no, 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 no. It's a lack of leadership that has killed those companies. In fact, in the next 10 years, based on experts and analysts, 250 of the current 500 are going to disappear. How can we fix the problem? How can we solve this problem? I believe the only way to solve this problem is through leadership, is through cultural leadership. And I have developed what I believe are the 4 basic principles of leadership, which I call the cultural RMPSs, or ROMPs for short, because I have a hard time memorizing everything. So, the cultural ROMPs, how does it break down? Every leader must be able to perform these every single day. Not once in a while, not every other day, but every single day. The first area is simply called the command of the room. Right? Command of the room. A leader has to have a plan. None of us follow anybody without a plan, right? And don't tell me about mission statements are a plan. Mission statements are empty promises, right? They do no purpose. They put them up there. Oh, that's great. Bill Walsh, the head coach of the 49ers, took over the team in 1979. They were the losingest franchise in the NFL. He didn't come walking into the building and saying, oh, we're going to win the Super Bowl in 2 years, even though they did. He came in with a standard of excellence, a plan that he wanted everybody in the organization to understand and work on every single day. Simple things: be fair, practice self-control, show discipline. Real simple. Met with everybody in the organization all the time. It didn't matter if you were in the ticket office, if you were working on the grounds crew, or if you were working on the football field as one of the players. I'll give you an example. I'm a young coach, scout sitting up in the coaching box. We're playing a game, not the magnitude of the Super Bowl, but it's a game nonetheless. And at halftime of the game, Coach Walsh wants me on the headset. Now, usually whenever Coach Walsh wants, my hands get sweaty like they are tonight, and I get nervous, and oh gosh, I'm in trouble now. And he says to me, this PA announcer is not behaving in the manner I want him to behave in. Remind me tomorrow when we get in the office, I want to fire the PA announcer. Okay, Coach, whatever you need. All right? The next morning, I go back to his office. I sheepishly walk upstairs to his office and say, Coach, you told me to remind you about the PA announcer. And at that moment, he gave me a great lesson. He said, look, everybody here is responsible for the plan. Everybody must carry out the plan. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. Your job is to perform your job at the highest level every single day. That's command of the room. Those little details, those things that are so important to him, made it important to everybody else. It was important for Joe Montana, our Super Bowl MVP, and it was important to the PA announcer. Now, he never did fire the PA announcer, but he had a talk with him, and he made his point very clear. Command of the room. The next one, command of the message. I mean, really, what good is a plan if you can't talk about the plan, if you can't communicate the plan? It doesn't do us any good. And it has to come from your authentic style. And I can't think of a better example of command of the message than what happened in Washington, D.C. on a hot summer day in 1963 when Dr. Martin Luther King took the stage. What people don't realize is Dr. King was one of 16 speakers that day. He just happened to be the last one. He wasn't a keynote speaker, by no means. He had a time limit of just 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Some speakers refused to speak that day because they didn't think they could get their message across in 5 minutes. Dr. King got up there. Right around the 5-minute mark, Dr. King hears a sound from behind him. It's the great gospel singer Mahalia Jackson. She says, tell him about the dream, Dr. King. 2 weeks earlier in Detroit, Miss Jackson heard Dr. King give the I Have the Dream speech. At that moment, Dr. King launched into the I Have the Dream speech. 11 minutes later, no one in Washington misunderstood what Dr. King's message was. He was very clear. They could see it, they heard it, and most importantly, they visualized it. And they left Washington to enact it. Now, I know, clearly I know, we all don't have the oratory skills of Dr. King. I don't. But we have our own way of communicating, right? We have our own way of presenting the message to what we have to do. And it's important. The message is great. Telling the message how we do it is the most important. Commanding the room, command the message, vital. The next area, command of the process. Leadership is hard. leading people is very hard. And sometimes you have to make tough decisions. And sometimes you have to follow down the path of the most resistance. You know, I'm an old TV buff, so I tend to watch old TV shows. And I don't know if many of you remember the I Love Lucy. Lucille Ball gets in a lot of trouble all the time. And Lucy teaches us one of the great leadership lessons you can ever know. One day, Lucy's in her bedroom. And as only things can happen to Lucy, her wedding ring slips off and falls on the floor. So naturally, Lucy gets on the floor and starts looking around for her wedding ring. You know, several scenes later, in comes Ricky. Lucy, what are you doing? She's in the living room now. What are you doing on the floor in the living room? Lucy says, I lost my wedding ring. I'm looking for it. Looking for your wedding ring? Where, on the floor? Yeah. This goes back and forth. Finally, Ricky asked the most fundamental question of all. Where did you lose your ring? I lost it in the bedroom. In the bedroom? What are you doing looking in the living room? The light's much better here. The light's much better here. Perfect, right? Lucy's never going to find what she wants there. No chance, right? She's never going to find it. Leaders who create culture don't need the light to find their mission. They can see it in the darkness. It's hard to ask tough questions. It's hard to make tough decisions. It's hard to be unpopular. But for the good of the organization, for the good of the culture, we have to do it. Lucy never found her ring. The final area, command of self. A leader's job is to drive creativity and curiosity in the organization. And as a result, what happens? We make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I mean, I made mistakes coming here, missed 2 turns. We all make mistakes every day, right? How we deal with those mistakes are the most important facet. Paul Shoemaker wrote a great book called Brilliant Mistakes, and he talks about how we hang on to mistakes too long, and we cling to them. And even though we know we're wrong, we keep going down the path, hoping that we're going to prove ourselves right. When a leader admits mistakes, he shows vulnerability. He shows the ability for others that he's vulnerable. He's willing to admit mistakes. He's willing to take chances. And as a result, the team will take chances. When Belichick stands in front of his team after a win or a loss, it's always, we can do this, we can do that. He's creating curiosity. He is creating creativity. And we know this more than ever. Smart people learn from their mistakes. The smartest people learn from others' mistakes. So let's go back to the final 26 seconds of Super Bowl 49 for a moment. At that precise moment, Belichick operated all 4 areas. He stood on that sideline and he commanded the room. Waited for the right time. He commanded the message when he sent out a defense that he knew he needed to have. He commanded the process when he didn't call a timeout, which frankly, I was up in the press box screaming, call timeout, call timeout. He didn't. He didn't take the path of least resistance. And he commanded himself when he had the vision to know he needed a defense at the right time and called it at the right time. All within 26 seconds. As Belichick was doing that, Merriam's dictionary word of the year was, guess what? Culture. They define culture as shared attitudes, objectives, and visions by institutions and organization. Perfect, right? That's what we're talking about. How do we bring that all together? We are all leaders, no matter what we do in life. When we walk out of here, we lead ourselves, we lead others. If we take the cultural RMPSs with us, the ROMPs with us, we then create the culture that we both survive in, we thrive in, and we impact others. And you know what? We can do it in a lot more time than just 26 seconds. Thank you.